What is a secret cheat code you found in real life? I figured out a social cheat code about 3 years ago, and honestly, I still feel like I'm hacking the simulation every time I use it. It's so simple it sounds fake, but it took me from being the awkward background character in every room to being the person people actually remember. Growing up, I was the definition of an NPC. I'm talking about the person who stands by the snack table at parties, staring at their phone and praying anyone, will come talk to me, while simultaneously being terrified that they actually will. I always thought the cool people had some secret manual on how to be charismatic. I thought you had to be funny, or rich, or have these insane life stories about backpacking through Europe. I had none of that. I was just me, bored, boring, and invisible. The turning point happened at this high-stakes corporate mixer. My company was being scouted for a merger, and my boss basically told me that if I didn't network, my department was probably the first on the chopping block. The pressure was suffocating. I remember standing in this ballroom, sweating through my suit, watching everyone do the power handshake dance. Then, I saw him, Arthur Sterling. He was the big boss of the acquiring firm. He was notorious for being a dragon, cold, blunt, and he apparently hated small talk. He was standing alone by the window, looking like he wanted to fire the entire room. My internal monologue was screaming, "Go over there, say something. If you don't, you're unemployed by Monday." My legs felt like lead, but I forced myself to walk up. I didn't have a pitch. I didn't have a joke, but I noticed something. On his lapel, he wasn't wearing a company pin. It was a tiny, weathered enamel pin of a specific type of vintage airplane, a Supermarine Spitfire. Now, I don't know anything about planes. Nothing. But my grandfather used to have a model of one. So instead of asking about the merger or the quarterly projections like everyone else, I just pointed at it and said, "I'm sorry to bother you, but is that a Spitfire?" My granddad used to talk about those, but I've never seen a pin that detailed. The dragon froze. He looked at me, and for a second, I thought he was going to have security escort me out. But then, his entire face changed. The coldness just evaporated. "You recognize a Mark 9?" he asked, his voice suddenly 3 octaves more animated. For the next 45 minutes, I didn't say more than 50 words. That was the cheat code. I realized right then that I didn't need to be interesting. I just had to be interested. I asked him things like, "What got you into vintage aviation? And is it hard to find original parts for those?" He went off. He told me about his father, about the mechanics of Merlin engines, about the thrill of being thousands of feet up in a machine that feels alive. He was beaming. He wasn't the scary CEO anymore. He was just a guy sharing his soul. I remember thinking, wait, is this it? Is this the secret? I was just nodding, saying, "Wow, and that's incredible," and asking follow-up questions based on the last thing he said. I wasn't performing. I was just holding the door open for him to walk through. The climax of this happened when the mixer was ending. My boss walked over, looking pale, probably expecting to apologize for my existence. Arthur Sterling turned to him, shook his hand, and said, "You've got a bright one here? Most people in this room are vultures, but this kid actually has a head on his shoulders. We should talk more next week." My boss's jaw literally dropped. I got a promotion 2 months later. Since then, I've used this code everywhere. With the grumpy neighbor who turns out to be a master gardener. With the silent IT guy who is secretly a world-class dungeon master. With my mother-in-law, who I thought hated me, until I asked her about her grandmother's sourdough starter. The secret is this. Everyone is carrying around a hidden world, a hobby, a passion, or a niche history that they think nobody cares about. Most people spend their lives waiting for someone to ask them about it. When you become the person who asks, and you actually listen with genuine curiosity, you're not just making conversation. You're giving them a gift. You're saying, "I see you, and I think what you love is important." It's not manipulative if you actually care, you know? It's just empathy. But in a world where everyone is waiting for their turn to speak, being the one who listens feels like a superpower. So that's my cheat code. Be the person who asks, "Why do you love that?" instead of, "What do you do?" It has opened more doors for me than any degree or alpha personality ever could.